Okay, good afternoon, guys. So, for one of my channels, I want to talk about psychology. So, that channel's name is Psycho at Work. For those of you who don't know me, I am Rosalina Michael, and today's topic on psychology is going to be locus of control, internal and external locus of control. Okay, so the external locus of control is usually perceived as the person sees external circumstances or anything that's outside of themselves as in control of their choices and their feelings and their reactions. So their circumstances and people, it's not about working hard, it's not about going to class, or it's not about going to work or looking for work. If anything affects their life, it's because of something else, and it's usually a pessimistic view on life. This is the research that I've done on the books that I've read on locus of control and the articles that I've read on locus of control. So obviously, I would like to hear from you whether you agree or disagree with me. Internal and external locus of control does vary depending on the person and depending on the environment and depending on the situation. But in general, the concept of external locus of control is a negative perception of how a person would feel influenced by a situation or by people. So they don't get where they want to get in life because the situation was against me, or because God hates me, or because my teacher doesn't like me and is marking unfairly, or whatever the reason. It's never actually their fault. They never see it as it's their fault or something that they can improve on. It's something that's outside of themselves that they cannot control. In my opinion, that is pessimistic. That can be seen as negative, because if it's something that you can't control, then it means you can't fix it for the future. So these people tend to walk around with this morbid I'm a victim mentality. So they can't necessarily learn from their mistakes or learn from the situation, or just take responsibility for the mistakes that they make. And this is what makes it an external locus of control. It is a little bit different from somebody who has a religion or following a specific religion, and they believe that the higher power will lead them and good things will come from the higher power, things like that. For example, God or Christianity. It is a little bit different from that, because within Christianity there's the combination of God working along with us having a responsibility to do certain things. So if you don't get the job, it's because God has better plans for you, or has chosen to not place you in that environment. Or if you chose not to move country and you chose to take a job in a different place, or you chose not to marry this person, you chose to marry somebody else, you could say that the higher power, which is God, had better plans for you or had different plans for you. But it's not a pessimistic look at things. It's more like a way of realizing that there's certain things that what you can't control, but there might be better things in life or better different options that you could be choosing, but you're still open to learning from your mistakes. You're still open to learning from the situation. You're still open to seeing that there's different opportunities that can be good or better for you. External locus of control is very different from that. It's blaming others, blaming circumstance, choosing not to take responsibility for the way that you respond to a circumstance in a positive way. Right, so internal locus of control is usually about you own your own success and you own your own failure. So I do also think that with owning your own success, you can humbly own your own success. You don't have to be egotistical about it. But if you are doing introspection and you're looking at yourself as you look at yourself as, I take responsibility for studying for my test and writing well in my test, going for the interview, preparing for the interview, applying for jobs, making move from one city to the next or one country to the next, choosing to be in a relationship, choosing to persevere in that relationship, choosing to get married, choosing to start your own family, all of those things are choices. You taking responsibility for making choices in your life to move forward in the way that you would like to see change and would like to move forward. That is internal locus of control, where you also have a look at your successes and see, okay, this is something that I did good, so this is what's working. And then you have a look at your failures and you see, okay, so this is something where I can improve on. Rather than seeing it as it's doomsday, you're seeing it as something that you can learn from. And so you see failure as a positive thing rather than seeing failure as a demon that's out to get you. So because the thing is that we are people and we're always evolving, it's not possible to never have failure. I think sometimes it is okay when we have a regret here and there and choosing to learn from that and to not make certain mistakes again. But I think also that it is also okay to say this was a failure, but I'm not afraid to make this mistake again. But you're taking responsibility for it. You're having a look at who you are and you're happy with who you are and the choices you've made. And if you're wanting to make certain changes, you're choosing to do that. It's about being self-secure. In my opinion, internal locus of control is about being self-secure and is about taking responsibility for yourself and for your actions. Right, so I do believe that also with doing some further research, external locus of control can be a good thing in that it's not completely negative, in that it's not a mental illness, it's not something that's irreversible. I know for myself when I was little, I did tend to see the glass as half empty. And as I've gotten older, I've realized that life is about what you're choosing to control and what you're choosing not to control. So you're choosing to let go of stuff that you cannot control. And therefore, with external locus of control, you can actually learn to think in a positive way and learn to see situations, not distorting situations, not manipulating stuff. I don't think manipulating and distorting reality or perception or circumstance is healthy either. I do think that just choosing to see the situation while that's positive and optimistic is a better way to live. So for those who do see life from an external locus of control perspective, I do think that if you were to choose to see the glass as half full rather than half empty, you can learn to think like that. You can learn to be happy with the circumstance that you have. For example, you know that you're needing, or you feel like you're needing to change a job so that you can earn a better salary, so that you can, I don't know, travel, or so that you can study further, or whatever the case is. So you look at your CV, you fix your CV, you look for jobs, you send your CV out, you go for job interviews. You don't be too picky on which job interviews you go on. You just go on a whole bunch of different job interviews and you learn a lot through that process. That is seeing the glass as half full. And then once they give you feedback, the kind of feedback that they're going to give you, you don't have control over. So you're not going to obsess and be anxious over it. But then you narrow down your options. For example, now some people didn't ask you for the second interview, and you narrow down your options to 3 different places where you could find work, where you could choose to work. And so 2 of these places have got the salary that you're looking for. You're not going to really know if this is going to be a place that you're going to enjoy working for until you're actually working there for a long period of time, because employers can lie and you don't know who the co-workers are going to, who they are and what they're going to be like. You don't know if you're going to love the job that you do within the first month or 2. You'll probably only really get a true reflection of that after a year. That's not something that you can control, so you let go. But I do think that evaluating your goal, you wanting to travel, you wanting to study further. You can deal with the boss being the way that he or she is. You can deal with the circumstance, and you feel like you can comfortably maybe stay in that company for 2 to 3 years, and therefore you can achieve a certain goal, because with that salary you can travel and you can save and you can study, whatever the goal is. And then you can, in the meantime, also be looking out for different jobs, or have a look and see if in that same company that you can climb the ladder and add something more valuable to your resume and to your own experience that will grow you as a person and in your field. Or just something as you're tired of your field because you've been working in it in 15 years and now you want a different field of work. So you take a chance and you take your resume and you apply for a completely different new job. And you don't obsess about whether you're going to be able to do it well or whether you won't. You don't obsess over what you can control and what you can't control. All you can do is go for the job interview, learn a new trade, do as much reading as possible, ask people questions, learn what you can, and make yourself valuable as much as you can control within that field, along with allowing yourself to learn from the people around you and from maybe your employer and the co-workers and in that environment, so that you can build a good reputation in that field, so they can see that you are loyal and you do work hard, even though this is a completely new trade for you. Meaning, you can take that external locus of control where you feel you have no responsibility over what happens to you and you feel like a victim, and you turn it into what can I control, what are my goals, and how can I make my life more meaningful in the way that I want to, as well as knowing that I cannot control everything, like who you work for, who you work with. You can sometimes control how much you earn because you can choose to accept the job or not. But the point is that I think within internal locus of control, worrying about things that you cannot necessarily control can weigh a person's spirit down, which is why I say even if you have internal locus of control over your life in general, and that's your general perspective on life, if there are certain things that you do feel like you want more, like better pay, or you do feel like you're wanting to study and you just cannot afford it at this point, choosing how you look at that perspective, choosing how you will respond to your situation and getting to that goal, that concept is internal locus of control. How are you viewing that situation? Is it pessimistic or is it optimistic? Is it something where you can make changes, or this job will long term help you to make changes? Or is it something that's going to weigh down your spirit and make you resentful towards your life? And I think you have one life, and it's unnecessary to live it with viewing it as the glass is half empty. According to the articles that I read here, people who have internal locus of control don't necessarily need to be in a structured environment in order to reach their goals. They don't necessarily need somebody as a supervisor or a teacher monitoring their progress in order to achieve their goals, because they usually have focus, because they have this idea that they want to, if they're in school, the article I read was about school students, so they want certain grades because they want to finish school with a good grade so they can get into university, so they can study this or this, because they want a job in this or that. And they usually have an idea that they don't, if they live in a small town, that they want to live in a bigger town, and they've already done sort of research on getting into a school in that bigger town requires this grade. So they already have this positive outlook on their lives. So teachers can help, or parents can help, or having a good support system can help to structure, to give a healthy structure for those who have external locus of control to focus and to realize, okay, you can still achieve your goals, and people with external locus of control can still achieve their goals. I just think it's healthy to have an optimistic viewpoint rather than blame everybody else for things that go wrong, and only take responsibility for successes and then egotistically take responsibility for successes. For me, that's not very healthy, but that's my opinion, of course. So what the article is saying is that people with external locus of control need a structured classroom, need supportive friends, need teachers to keep track of their progress, need parents to keep track of their progress and that they're doing schoolwork and that they're going to sports and all these things. They need that structure because they're relying on people outside of them to help them to reach their goals. People with internal locus of control don't necessarily need full-on structure like that because they, in their minds, they are motivated by the goal that they've set. So you might get some people who don't necessarily have a strong goal academically, and they have internal locus of control, but they're also free spirits in that they know they're going to finish with school and they'll get into university and they'll study something that's good, that will get them a good job, and that's great. And they don't necessarily have this desire for a high stressful job or whatever the case is, but they have an internal locus of control. They don't walk around with this morbid look on life. That's also possible. There's nothing wrong with that. My aim with this video on internal and external locus of control is to encourage us to live a life with optimism, seeing the glass as half full, and making goals, whatever those goals are, making goals to help us be reminded that we have control of our lives, and we can choose whether things bother us or whether things don't bother us. We can choose whether we let people treat us badly, whether we don't. And to a degree as well, within these articles that I've read, it's also emphasized that we teach people how to treat us based on how we view ourselves, and that is connected to internal locus of control, because of how you see yourself and how you respond to people, and the people who you let influence you, you're going to let them treat you a certain way. And so people who don't treat you the way that you want to be treated, you won't allow a certain amount of influence, because you know that you don't need to allow that certain amount of influence, and you'll put up boundaries. And this is another reason why I think it's better. I think it's a better perspective to have internal locus of control, because of you choosing who you allow into your life, you choosing what your goals are, you choosing how you respond to an unemployment situation, you choosing how you respond to the loss of a loved one in the family, you're choosing to get divorced, all of those things. And sometimes getting divorced is a blessing, and sometimes choosing to persevere and stay in the relationship is also a blessing. One last aspect that I want to talk about, as they say, you can actually strengthen locus of control within a person. So meaning teachers, friends, parents can strengthen locus of control within another person by encouraging them to make goals, to identify their goals, and encouraging them to persevere when following their goals is difficult, and encouraging the person to believe that what their goal is to achieve is achievable. And then just reminding them when they have moments where they get tired of being optimistic, reminding them that they're working hard and that they need to keep working hard. So it's like climbing a mountain. There's going to be points in climbing the mountain where your body's really tired, when you feel like you have no oxygen, when you feel like you're dehydrated, when you feel like you haven't eaten enough food. You're going to have people there who climbing the mountain with you and remind you to eat, remind you to drink water, remind you that you're climbing a mountain, and that mountain is a goal, and it's going to be difficult. But once they're actually at the top and once they actually walk on the bottom, they'll have achieved their goal, and they will be appreciative that they didn't stop halfway just because it got tired, just because they were hungry, just because they were dehydrated. So 3 things that the article talks about by Turner. Turner is the name of the person who wrote this article. They said, decide what your goals are and stick to them. See criticism as a sense of growth. So you might get criticism in a really bad way, or you might get constructive criticism. Take it in, think about it, decide whether you agree with that criticism, and if you don't agree with criticism, let it go. And if you do agree with criticism, make it part of learning from your failure. So grow from the criticism and ask for help if you need it. Ask for guidance, ask for assistance, maybe even from people who have walked that same mountain. Decide what your goals are. Criticism, turning it into growth, or letting it go, because nobody knows your situation better than you do, and asking for help if you feel like you need it.